We're talking Denver Broncos and LA Rams on today's episode of Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today is Crossover Thursday. Crossover Thursday is presented by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is so much fun, so easy to play. No competing with other players. It's you versus the projections. Pick between 2 and 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times the money on your entry. It can literally take less than 60 seconds to enter. It is that easy. We love Prize Picks, and we know you will too. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That is prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Welcome to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me, as always, is Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. How's it going, Matt?
It's going. How about you? How's it going?
Yeah, it's good here. Just ready for round 2 of the playoffs. We've got that coming up soon. Saturday is going to be a fun one for sure. So several good games, or 4 good games, I guess. Hopefully is what we get this weekend. I know I'm looking forward to that. Matt, the teams we're talking about today are not playing this weekend, though. These are the among the worst teams in the league. We are in our team review series. We've talked about the 4 worst teams in the league so far, and those are the teams with the top 4 picks in the NFL draft. Matt, these 2 teams we're talking about today have something in common. Not only were they both 5-12, not only did they struggle all season, but they both have also traded their first round pick. So they don't even get that benefit. That's the worst thing in Dynasty, isn't it? You trade that future first round rookie pick, and then you end up having a disappointing season. Injuries hit you. Your players don't play as well as you thought they would. That's what happened to the Denver Broncos and the LA Rams. Neither have that first round rookie pick. We're gonna get into those 2 teams today, Matt.
Yeah, and they're in interesting spots in their franchise existence, to be honest with you. So we're digging to Denver first. Is that the plan?
Yeah, let's talk Denver Broncos. Of course, they make the big move last offseason, the trade for Russell Wilson. They gave up draft picks. They gave up Noah Fant. They gave up a ton of stuff to get Russell Wilson, and for the most part, that did not pay off. Russell Wilson had the worst year of his career by a long shot, ends up as the quarterback 19 on a points per game basis, 15.1 fantasy points. He did end the season on a little bit of a hot streak, I guess you could say, after they fired Nathaniel Hackett. I don't know if those 2 things correlate necessarily, but you certainly hope, and Denver hopes he can regain what we saw in Seattle moving forward in 2023. Running back, it was more bad news because Javonte Williams, a player that you once thought could be the 101 rookie with the 101 startup pick this offseason. He's not going to be that because he missed most of the season with a torn ACL. Before he suffered that injury, he did average 10.5 fantasy points per game and gave us 1 game as a top 24 fantasy scorer. Latavius Murray came in and played pretty well, honestly, through much of the season, taking over for Williams. Murray is a free agent, though. They also traded for Chase Edmonds midway through the year. Wide receiver, we know the duo, Jerry Jeudy, 13.6 fantasy points. He's the wide receiver 21. Cortland Sutton, 10.6 fantasy points. He's the wide receiver 43. Both of those guys, I would say, a disappointing year, and that's probably tied to the coaching staff and the struggles of Russell Wilson. But I think the hype was really out of control on those 2 receivers, especially after the Broncos made that trade, and they did not live up to the hype. The Broncos also have KJ Hamler. He missed 10 games dealing with more injuries, and Tim Patrick, who missed the entire season I believe that was an ACL tear for him. At tight end, Greg Dulcich, 8.6 fantasy points per game as a rookie. He was the tight end 17. And Alberto, a big disappointment, 3.2 fantasy points per game, tight end 52. Matt, you look at this roster, huge names here, right? Huge names from a dynasty standpoint. Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, Judy, and Sutton. All of those guys, for different reasons, were disappointments, and that's why this team is 5-12 and down here towards the bottom of the list. What do you expect in 2023? Can they all turn it around?
Well, again, whoever they hired head coach is going to be married to Russ. Your job is to get him right. You kind of mentioned it. I do think when they made the coaching change, a little light bulb went off and thought maybe it was the coach more than anything, because they did show signs of life without him, including Alberto, including Judy, who finished the season strong. Certainly Russ was better without Hackett, but boy, was he bad with him. I mean, you mentioned that Patrick's coming back, Javonte Williams is coming back, Garrett Bowles. I don't think they're set to lose a lot. I mean, it's a pretty loaded offense on paper.
Yeah, it really is. Like I said, a lot of name value there. The only player that I mentioned that is a free agent is Latavius Murray. Obviously, they hope they won't need him with Javonte Williams ideally coming back strong from that ACL injury. If there's one player, let's shift over to Dynasty for a second. Okay. If there's one player on this roster that you are buying in a Dynasty league this offseason, who would that be?
I'm going to say Judy. I know he's not going to be super cheap, but I loved him coming out of school. I think he's a really good route runner, and maybe that's some recency bias of how he ended the season, but he was pretty strong, and so I think I would like to have Judy. Curious what he costs, but I have concerns about Javonte's injury, so it's not him, because I did love him at one point.
Yeah, I thought you might go with Javonte Williams there. Actually, Judy makes sense though, and again, when they made that trade to get Russell Wilson, I talked about the hype of the two receivers. Cortland Sutton seemed to be the favored guy, right? His dynasty ADP shoots up. They both.
He's going to be the DK Metcalf.
Right. That was the narrative. That was the narrative. And we even heard some reports that early on in camp and in OTAs that Sutton was the favored target. And, that impacted their trade value or their dynasty value, certainly. But in the end, it's Jerry Jeudy who outperforms Sutton. Jeudy gave us 8 games as a top 24 wide receiver, including that huge blow-up game. Cortland Sutton gave us 3 games as a top 24. None of them were wide receiver 1. So all of them in that wide receiver 13 to 24 range. I think it's pretty clear here that Jerry Jeudy's just the better player and the better producer. That's fair to say, right?
Oh, I think so. I would imagine the next head coach sees it that way. You just watch them both on tape. I think Judy's harder to cover. I mean, I just think he's more dynamic. He's more explosive.
You talked about the trade value of Jerry Jeudy, checking out the trade finder at Dynasty League Football. There's a bunch of Jeudy trades recently, and they're all over the board. So it feels like Judy's a player that maybe we don't know how to value. And that goes back to the questions of the coaching staff. And can Russell Wilson turn this around? Jerry Jeudy for Deebo Samuel even up. That's a surprise that you could get Deebo there. Jerry Jeudy for Geno Smith in a super flex league.
I get that.
Yeah, I get that one as well. I'd still probably go Jeudy there, but I understand it. Jeudy and Deontay Johnson for Drake London. Jeudy and Wan'Dale Robinson for Terry McLaurin. I don't like that one. I want Jeudy and Wan'Dale there.
Yeah.
Jeudy and a 3rd rounder for DJ Moore and Kadarius Toney. I think
it's fair to me. Yeah.
I'm going DJ Moore side there. Jeudy for Miles Sanders, even up.
I would rather have Jeudy, I think.
I would as well.
How many rookie receivers would you take over Jeudy?
5-ish. 3 is the easy
Right.
3 at least, I would say. And then I think there's going to be some others in the conversation. But certainly the top 3 guys, I think, are pretty easy calls over Judy at this point. Matt, when we come back, we'll continue this conversation about the Denver Broncos, and we'll get into the LA Rams as well.
Guys, I told you before about betonline.net. It's the only place that I get my betting information or stats or news or analysis. It's definitely the number one source out there for all those things. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. Of course, NFL, hockey, baseball's right around the corner, basketball, anything you want. I mean, it's great for World Cup as well. They got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you probably do. I mean, you can even find those on BetOnline as well. Always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Thanks again for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Subscribe to the Locked On NFL podcast and get daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories, plus in-depth analysis of the biggest games with NFL key predictions every Friday. And Monday, local insiders cover the weekend with game-to-game episodes. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Matt, let's finish out that conversation about the Denver Broncos. It all really goes back to Russell Wilson, and we talked about how bad he is. That's kind of obvious at this point. And there's going to be some clarity, we hope, once they finalize the coaching hire. But do you look at Russell Wilson and think he's done? He can't come back from this, or do you expect that to be, kind of a blip on the radar, and he can bounce back to that weekly quarterback 1 type player?
Oh, I don't see that. That's too much of a stretch for me. I mean, I still think he's not the athlete he was. He's always struggled to see the field. So he's not the second reaction player he once was. He needs to do more quarterback stuff. But I bet at his price, with his current reputation in a super flex league, he's still probably an every week starter. And I think he's closer to a buy than a sell, because the contract, this organization is married to him. He's going to be the quarterback.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a trade target in those super flex leagues for sure. I mean, we all saw how bad he was, and that's kind of lingered. And in fact, I think right now, before they make that coaching hire, is the best time to go out and try to acquire him. Once the coaching hire happens, whoever it might be, we're going to hear great things. We're going to hear that coach praising Russell Wilson for all that he can do, all that he brings to the team, et cetera, et cetera. And the value is going to steadily start to creep up. So now's the time to make those trade offers for Russell Wilson.
The guys around him are good. I mean, he's good skill guys around him, Yeah,
for sure. I wanted to ask you about Greg Dulcich. Okay. I'm really impressed at the combine last year. I remember listening to his interview, and he wasn't a player I was super familiar with before that, honestly. And maybe we know this, you all know the story by now, but essentially goes from a walk-on to the starter for UCLA and obviously a drafted player. What do you see in his future?
I think I don't want to say he's at the Freiermuth level of prospect, but I'm trying to think of some other younger guys. He's probably on path to be the 10th, the 13th best tight end in the league, maybe as soon as next year. And I think it's really impressive when early tight ends, like we talked Trey McBride a couple days ago, they usually don't do much as rookies or early on. And when you start showing up that early in your career, despite bad circumstances, I immediately think, and this is the case with Dulcich, is okay. I think he's going to be a good player. This guy's a keeper.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we're buying Jerry Jeudy. I agree with you on that one. We're buying Russell Wilson. We're buying Greg Dulcich. Javonte Williams, you mentioned some concern.
This seems J.K. Dobbins-ish.
And that's bad news. What about Cortland Sutton? Buy or sell Cortland Sutton?
Probably selling, especially after a coach is hired and there's a little bit of buzz around the team.
Yep, I'm totally with you there.
Yeah.
The price has dropped, but I'm still ready to move on.
Patrick's a good player. He's so out of sight, out of mind. Patrick and Sutton are a little redundant.
Yeah, Patrick, he had that ACL injury. I think he's 30 years old. So, we'll see if he can even come back from this, honestly. Let's set the stage here for the LA Rams, and then we'll take a quick break.
Okay.
5-12, third place in the NFC West. Matthew Stafford, 12 fantasy points per game. He's the quarterback, 34. Really disappointing season coming off that Super Bowl win, and that's kind of the theme really of this entire team. They bring in Baker Mayfield, 10.1 fantasy points on the season. That's the entire season, by the way, not just his time with the Rams. He's quarterback 43 on the year. Baker Mayfield is a free agent, by the way. It sounds like Stafford is coming back. There was some.
I was concerned. Yeah,
there was some suggestion that maybe he calls it a career. Stafford is back, so we assume Baker Mayfield probably gone. We'll see how free agency plays out for him. Running backs Cam Akers ended up being the lead guy like we thought he would, but it was certainly a bumpy road, was a healthy scratch, was a trade target. We thought he might even get cut at some point. He ends up back as the starting running back by the end of the year. 9.4 fantasy points, RB 40 on the year, gave us 5 games as the top 24 fantasy scorer. Kyron Williams, the rookie pass catching running back, ended up being okay. Gave us about 3.5 fantasy points per game. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp, 22.4 fantasy points per game. That was good for the wide receiver 1 spot on the season, but of course he missed 8 games with that injury. Allen Robinson, what a disappointment, Matt. I missed badly.
Me too. I was so on board with him.
Yeah, he was one of my biggest trade targets last year, and I know we talked about him a ton on here, so definitely a player that we need to apologize for because we were both very wrong on him. 8.5 fantasy points per game. Wide receiver 63 also had an injury and missed 7 games. But honestly, even when he was on the field, was not very good at all. Mm-hmm. Van Jefferson, 7 fantasy points per game. Tutu Atwell, 4.9 fantasy points per game. And Tyler Higbee, tight end, 8.9. He was the tight end 14 and was a tight end 1 7 times. Not only Matthew Stafford was rumored to be leaving, but Sean McVay also was rumored to be calling it a career or at least stepping away from the Rams. That's not happening, though. He's staying with the team. He'll be back. Stafford will be back. We'll see about the other changes. Baker Mayfield, the only free agent. So, Matt, we're going to talk about the Rams a little bit more right after this.
If you're looking for a delicious treat and don't want all the fat and calories, which everybody should be, then you got to try Built Bar. We just got through the holidays. I know my goal is to eat a little healthier. And if you're like me and you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise the taste, then the thing for you is definitely Built Bar. I mean, with Built, healthy is actually tasty. It's pretty incredible, to be honest with you. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they are covered in 100% real chocolate, and they still keep their calories down, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors: coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, churro. It's amazing. But these bars do taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And that's even better, is that they're healthy. They're only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar, but they still have 17 grams of protein. Now, you don't have to go to built.com to get your box. They're now at local Walmarts and Sam's Club as well. That's amazing. Yeah, you head to the nearest Walmart today, walk in the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up 4-bar box, cookie and cream, double chocolate, coconut puffs. Or if you're close to a Sam's Club, run in and grab the 13-bar box with brownie batter and churro. Thank me later on that.
Matt, let's talk LA Rams here. As I said before the break, Matt Stafford sounds like he'll be back. We certainly hope Cooper Kupp will be fully healthy. They're getting Sean McVay back. For better or worse, Allen Robinson looks like he'll be back on this team as well. We know Cooper Kupp is the most valuable dynasty asset on this team. And we talked about those veterans, those elite veterans a few weeks ago, that they're going to be priority trade targets and draft targets for us, but especially trade targets for us this offseason. So go out and acquire Cooper Kupp if you can and where you can. But Matt, outside of Kupp, who else do you want on this roster in a dynasty league?
See, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think the recent news that you mentioned about McVay and Stafford looking like they're going to give it another shot is really encouraging because, Akers came on strong. Some people stepped up and during the lean times to finish the year. Akers in particular, even like the Atwells of the world, got a little bit of run. Maybe there's some depth there, but to me, the stigma around this team is going to be, boy, they won the Super Bowl. They went all in, they traded 1 million picks, and now they're done. They're going to be awful for years. Well, I think Stafford, McVay, and maybe Aaron Donald disagree with us, and decide to run this thing back. And as encouraging as that is, I would bet or guess many of their draft, or many of their offseason assets, namely their mid-round picks or second, third-round picks, they do have a second, are going to be on offensive linemen. So that's what I want to hear from my skill guys. I mean, they had an unbelievable revolving door on the O-line. If they can get that O-line from a D+ to a C+, okay, I think I'm interested in the price tag on all these guys. Even Robinson. I can't quit that guy, but boy, he's horrible.
Yeah, I still like Allen Robinson as well, but it's tough to admit he was that bad, and we were that off on him. Cam Akers, I think, is really an intriguing player in this offense because he was obviously a player that we liked. He even got all the way up to a first-round dynasty ADP a couple of years ago, and he's fallen off obviously drastically.
But he has to be back on the rise a little.
He is. He's moving back up, but it's been a slow, steady climb. Which is
a little quiet, a little bashful about jumping right in the deep end with him.
Yeah, and that's understandable. That's kind of what we've seen on the field. He didn't burst back onto the scene, but it's been that slow, regaining of trust and confidence. Do you think Akers is the Rams starting running back in 2023?
Yeah, I do. I mean, they have some defensive needs. They have O-line needs. I don't think they're going to do much at all with their skill guys. I think they run it back as is. And, I think that's great for him.
Are you giving a second-round rookie pick for Cam Akers?
Maybe not the first 2 picks in the draft, give or take, but yes, I am.
Mid-second?
Yes.
Mid-second, okay.
Yeah. Maybe more the more I think about it. He's still pretty young.
He is young. I don't know. I mean, certainly Tyler Higbee is fine, and
right.
Stafford is fine for what he is at this point, but outside of Cooper Kupp, I don't know if I really want any of these guys.
I don't know if I'm pursuing any of them. I mean, they're so cheap at this point. Akers and Kupp to me are desirable. Frankly, right. I've never been a Higbee guy. I don't own him anywhere. I don't think he has a high enough upside. He was never a hot young tight end for me. I would bet Stafford. I am a McVay believer, though, and I think Stafford will be on an offense that moves the ball pretty consistently, and that has value, and so I'm not moving away from any of those guys. I don't think they're more buys than sells, I would say, collectively, the Rams.
Yeah, that's fair. Looking back at the trade finder when it comes to Cam Akers and a second for Javonte Williams. I want the Javonte side.
Yeah, and I didn't say glowing things about him, but
Akers for a second, a third, and Logan Thomas. I'll take Cam Akers there. Akers and J.K. Dobbins for Derrick Henry. Ooh.
I'll take the 2 young guys.
Yeah, I think I will too. And then a couple different trades of Akers for a second round pick, which is kind of what I expected to see.
Yeah, you nailed that.
Yeah. Well, that will do it for our discussion of the Denver Broncos and the LA Rams. Thanks for listening today. We will be back next time. Please make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to the Locked On Dynasty channel on YouTube. Remember to follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Dynasty, and follow Matt at Williamson NFL. I'm Ryan MC23. We'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.